Compared to the UK, Caribbean logistics and costs are really not that expensive, or any more than keeping your boat permanently in the Mediterranean with all its Schengen restrictions. If you're looking for a place where there's nearly always wind on the beam and thousands of secure, pretty anchorages and unlimited sailing opportunities all the year round, then the island chain has a pretty economical solution for you. For the first couple of decades of my sailing life, I had boats based in the Hamble River and later on in La Rochelle, France, Gibraltar and the Mediterranean. I was lucky to be working as a freelance, so when I was between jobs I just went sailing, and when a job came up I'd stick the boat in a marina and jump on a jet plane. These days, friends of mine have their boats in various Mediterranean countries, but following their activities on marine traffic, I get the impression that they're getting less annual usage of their boat, their second home, than I am here in the Caribbean. Hundreds, if not thousands, of Americans and Canadians have their boats located down here, from the Bahamas to Trinidad to Mexico, and they visit by jet plane when the mood takes them. It's almost exactly 2 years since I repositioned my Beneteau 323, Golden Haze, from Northern Europe to the Caribbean. The main reason for relocating was having owned her for 2 years and sailed her in the English Channel from west to east. I found the seasons were short, wet, cold and often windy. Too windy. This was my arrival in the summertime back into my home port of Boulogne-sur-Mer at the end of the 2002 sailing season, having sailed from Eastbourne to Dartmouth and back along the French coast from Alderney to Le Havre to Dieppe and then back home. I looked pretty cold, wet and tired, and I'm pretty sure this was late August or early September. I tried a couple of years of having my boat in the marina just down the road from my home and going sailing in the summer, but I just found out that everybody else was doing exactly the same thing and that the summer was crowded and at very best only lasted for 3 months or so. Not, I felt, a very good usage of my boat investment. I'm basically land-based with a pleasant home, but wanting to avoid the horrors of the European winter, so 2 years ago I moved this boat to the Caribbean. Shipping your boat by merchant ship to somewhere where the sun shines and the sailing season is a hell of a lot longer and less crowded than in the UK is an alternative to sailing her there yourself. I've had several boats located in the Med and I know it well from Gibraltar to Suez, and frankly, I got bored with the lack of wind and the Schengen restrictions that now exist on when and where I can sail. The whole Schengen problem has made it too restrictive. Mediterranean marina costs seem to have gone sky high, even in non-European countries like Turkey and North Africa. I arrived back to start my third season here in the Caribbean just over a week ago, and just before my planned departure date I broke my leg tripping over a cobblestone, and I had to rebook a later flight with Air Caribe back to Martinique, which is why I'm not back here much earlier. I'm heading towards Guadeloupe to haul out and antifoul and perhaps keep Golden Haze there in what is effectively the local municipal marina at Bar du Fort, for lots of reasons. One of the attractions of all the French and Dutch islands is that their medical services are based on their European homelands and are absolutely excellent. Breaking my leg brought home to me the importance of having good, excellent, if not excellent, medical facilities close by. And I think for most Brits, your HMIC card will cover you in these French and Dutch islands. This is what the National Health Service UK website says about the NHIC, the HIC card, which is now called the UK EHIC. It says you should take your UK GHIC or UK EHIC with you when you travel abroad. If you need medically necessary treatment, you'll present the card at the hospital or other service provider that's treating you. Make sure that you're being treated as a public health provider and not as a private one. Keep all receipts and paperwork. Depending on the country that you visit, you may be expected to pay all or part of your bill up front and then claim a refund afterwards. Some countries ask patients to pay a contribution towards the cost of their care. This is known as co-payment or patient share. So you can claim back the difference between the total bill and the co-payment, but the actual co-payment is not refundable. Your UK GHIC or UK EHIC will not cover costs that a local resident would have to pay. Okay, so medically you're covered by the British or the EU Health Service up to around 70% of the total cost in about half of the Caribbean. There is no cover at all with this system in Antigua, Trinidad, possibly Grenada, nor the Virgin Islands, as they're not part of the EU, nor is there cover in all the mainland countries surrounding the Caribbean. If you want cover for these places, you need to buy UK travel insurance or use companies like Safety Wing, who will cover you from about £10 a week up to the age of 69. You can find a link to them by going to michaelbryant.com, then clicking on sailing, and then scrolling down to the Safety Wing logo on the right. Be aware, I'm not a lawyer, nor a health insurance expert, so please check everything I've stated. I'm not a full-time liveaboard by any stretch of the imagination, and my home life is very land-based. I just want a place to keep my boat where I can go sailing almost any time of the year and enjoy the sailing lifestyle until I get bored or just simply want to go home. Transatlantic air travel between the Caribbean islands and Europe is simple, competitive and relatively cheap with companies like British Airways, Air France and Air Caribe. There is of course a vast contingent of boats from all over the world with full-time liveaboards that can easily navigate Caribbean waters without ever having to pay marina fees, and they live a pretty comfortable lifestyle. But this is not for me these days. It was never my intention to live aboard permanently, rather to have a base for the boat so that when I felt the urge I could jump on a jet plane and do some sailing in warm trade wind waters and not have to pay the exorbitant marina prices that South Coast and UK sailing demands. I think it is arguable that the cost of keeping a boat in a Caribbean marina, including the travel costs from Europe to the islands, is comparable to keeping a boat in the Mediterranean or possibly the south coast of the United Kingdom. The cost of a return flight to the Caribbean is around £250 each way, or it's less if you avoid their scheduled school holidays, Christmas and New Year. Check the schedules from Gatwick, Heathrow, Manchester and so on to the various English islands out here. If you're heading for one of the French islands, like here, then you need to fly to Paris the day before for around 50 quid return and start your transatlantic flight from there the next morning. Almost all French transatlantic flights to the islands depart in the mornings and they arrive in the afternoon some 8 hours later. I always stay in an inexpensive 2-star hotel near Orly so I can get up at a reasonable time and use the hotel airport shuttle to get to the terminal the next morning. And the airport shuttle is free both ways. When I land in Martinique, there's the cost of transfer by taxi from the airport to the marina of around 80 to 100 euros. If I land in Guadeloupe and go to the marina from the airport, it's around 15 to 20 euros. There was, I think, a BBC drama series called Death in the Sun that was based in Guadeloupe, or certainly it was shot there. So, My total one-way cost to get my boat is around 500 quid all in. Normally I go once or twice a year and stay for around 5 to 7 months. The return travel costs are slightly less, as all the flights land from here, all the flights land in London or Paris in the morning, so you just get off the plane somewhere in Europe and travel home, feeling a bit jet-lagged. To keep my boat in, say, Eastbourne or Brighton marinas, I would need to find at least £5,000 a year. And in a more vibrant and central place like the Hamble or Lymington, it's going to cost between £8,500 and £9,500 a year for a Beneteau 323 like this one. The French islands look very, very attractive at around £3,200 a year. The marinas in English-speaking islands like Grenada or St. Lucia or Antigua will cost around £5,500 a year. Mind you, Jolly Harbour in Antigua is going to cost around £7,500 a year. That one is very popular with Americans and Canadians and offers a hurricane season haul-out package with its annual berths. The French islands are Martinique, Guadeloupe, Saint-Martin, and the Dutch islands are also Saint-Martin, Aruba, Bonaire, Curaçao. In these islands, the annual marina berth prices are some of the lowest in the Caribbean. Depending on your choice of island, the marina costs keeping a boat in an excellent marina in the sun in the Caribbean is certainly less than in a UK marina. What will certainly cost less is the annual haul-out fees and anti-fouling. In Guadeloupe this year, I expect to pay a total of £320 UK to haul in and out, and around £10 a day for the boat to be on the hard. In St. Lucia, just 25 miles south of here, the price is about the same. But here in Martinique, the cost's around £600 in and out, and that price and upwards is similar in some of the other British islands. Anti-fouling paint costs more because it has to be shipped here from the USA or from Europe. The French islands have pretty strict rules about what anti-fouling you can use and can't use, although brands like American Seahawk are much less than the premium international anti-fouling and possibly more effective and longer lasting. And you can obtain that anti-fouling paint in Guadeloupe, but not here in Martinique, which is a bit of a closed shop for international paints. What is going to cost more is insurance for the boat, and you should reckon on paying 2 to 3 times your UK Waters premium. I'm seriously considering going third party only this year. I'm just waiting to see what my annual renewal premium is. Insurance premiums are more to do with your experience and how many boats you've previously owned, together with where you plan to keep your boat during the hurricane season. All the island chandlers for everyday boat needs, and they're everywhere on every single island. The prices are generally 20 to 30% higher than European discount chandlers. If you want major electronic items, then discount houses like the German discount chandlers SVB will ship the item to the Caribbean free of VAT with a 10 days delivery timing for around £65. Because they ship VAT free and the import duty on most islands is around 17%, the total end cost, even with shipping the item, is probably the same as you would pay in a European or UK chandler's. You should never buy expensive marine items locally, as the chandlers seem to mark up unrealistically on the principle that it's a captive market. But with the advent of cheap freight and the internet, it's simple to buy in Europe and simply to have it shipped to your marina and pay the local tax on arrival to the courier, and they pay the customs for you. In order to look after my boat when I'm away for months on end, I pay a company in this marina £100 a month, say 25 quid a week, to inspect and open up the boat to air it every 7 days. I do this mainly during the hurricane season, and the weekly photos of the boat, how it's doing, gives me some peace of mind. And if the worst happens, then they're here in the marina to take care of my boat and mitigate the damage. Speaking of hurricanes, the reality is that not every island is hit by a hurricane every year, and most modern marinas are to some extent hurricane proof if you've tied up your boat correctly and removed everything that creates windage. Generally speaking, boats in marinas fare pretty well in everything except category 4 or 5 hits. Mind you, boats are damaged in the Atlantic coast marinas as well during storms each year in the winter, so nowhere's 100% safe. But if your boat is hit with 200-mile-an-hour winds from a category 5 hurricane, then it is going to be damaged for sure. For entertainment, there is of course Starlink, which will beam down Netflix and YouTube to your boat, as well as providing constant internet and international telephone coverage via the internet. The very basic residential package costs £60 a month, with upfront material costs of around £320. This probably won't work when you leave the marina and go sailing. The proper sailing system costs a mind-blowing £250 a month and a total of a couple of grand for the antenna, which also requires stacks of 220 power to track the satellites. Much less expensive is to have a SIM card with a virtually unlimited data from Digital or Free, both of which operate throughout the Caribbean. I mean, if you buy them for one island, they work in all the islands. My TP-Link, which is a 4G light mobile router, costs about £80 to buy in Europe and receives signals in most islands and anchorages. The unlimited SIM costs about £20 a month, so I can watch YouTube and Netflix to my heart's content with this system. So, to sum up, your marina and upkeep costs are going to be the same or slightly less than keeping your boat in a UK or Mediterranean marina. Your boat insurance is going to double or triple depending on your experience and if you really want to insure your dinghy and outboard. These items cost a lot to insure because so many are stolen each year because people just simply forget to lock them up. Personally, I fly with only hand baggage. I keep most sunshine clothes out here on the boat, so the air company's greed on cargo hold baggage doesn't affect me at all. It's a lot cheaper, so I eat less, I need fewer clothes, and life is easy. Eating out is frequently a lot cheaper than the UK and many Mediterranean resorts. Just got myself a new cockpit light for the cool evenings in the cockpit watching the world go by. I'm surrounded by Caribbean restaurants and bars serving great local meals with chilled wines or beers, and the supermarket is 2 minutes walk away with everything I want. There's a boat from Texas just across the pontoon, several from Canada, and a Hamble riverboat whose home port was the Hamble, a very nice westerly, just pulled in a couple of boats down. So there's a good social life if you want it. The vast majority of yachties out here have grey hair and are retired, and I'm afraid that's a fact of life throughout all the island chain. Looking forward to my next sail north at the end of this week, 150 miles north to Guadeloupe, where I'm going to haul, anti-foul, change the anodes and polish the hull and so on. A 3-day sail, 2 overnight anchorages, wind on the beam, and some cool downwind sailing, really. Maybe I'll stay in Guadeloupe for a season or two if my name comes up on the annual waiting list. I've just got to wait to see if it's got to the top. Interesting to see what happens. Or there's Martinique, or possibly even the Virgin Islands, just to enjoy the Frenchiness of Martinique here for another year is also a very good prospect. Hard work being retired. My library of digital sailing books is at gentlesailing.com, so you can buy them as instant downloads. There's a link to a printer who can convert them to hard copy if that's what you prefer. I've just totally updated and republished French Canal Routes to the Mediterranean, which is now in its 12th edition and is fully up to date with new information, charts and pictures. Recently I published Your Boat in the Sun, which proved an instant popular success. It's about where to keep your boat in the Mediterranean or the Caribbean and the costs and the logistics involved. The Atlantic Crossing Guide has become a bestseller, and it outsells most of the others, probably because it's arguably one of the most comprehensive guides to sailing to the Caribbean that's available. The Gentle Sailing Route to the Mediterranean is one of the most popular publications that I have. It describes how to coast hop all the way to Gibraltar without having to spend a night at sea. There are books about marinas in the Med, sailing in the Caribbean islands, as well as a book on simple navigation, and even a Pacific Ocean crossing guide, and a book about just living aboard a sailing boat. Anyway, it's all at gentlesailing.com. So please do pay the site a visit and browse through my publications if you have a moment. Thanks. Fair winds.